It's Paul Marsh, and I'm delighted to say that I've been joined by Spike Edney. Spike, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, and it's good to talk to you.
So you are coming to the Portsmouth Guildhall on the 29th of January with your show. What's it like to be Spike? People may know you, they may not know you, but you played keyboards with Queen from 1984.
Um, Let me start off by correcting you.
Okay,
It's not the 29th of January, it's the 22nd of January.
I literally
It's,
copied and pasted that from the website, so I might have to let them know.
yeah. On the 29th of January, in case anybody's interested, it will be the last date of the my mini tourette. And that will be in the Music Museum that's in Kew Gardens in London.
Oh,
So,
okay. Maybe there's crosswire somewhere. 22nd
yeah,
of January. Okay,
okay.
fair enough. But yeah,
Okay.
so you played with Queen from 1984, and you kind of people talk about George Martin as the fifth member of the Beatles. You were without a doubt the fifth member of Queen.
This comes up a lot, but I have to put that straight. There's only four members of Queen because they're the guys who wrote the songs, recorded the songs, and made the videos. There are plenty of people in the Queen world who have important roles, and one of them is Jim Beach, their manager, who is a very astute manager and has managed to keep the brand Queen alive for 50 years and to make it as relevant today as it was when it first started. So he gets called the fifth member of Queen. I get called the fifth member of Queen, but I'm not. I'm what am I? I'm a sergeant in their army. That's what I am.
Well, listen, when you're talking about one of the greatest bands of all time, if you were named the 28th member, it's not a bad thing, right?
Oh no, I'm not. Any connection, I mean, to such a massive cultural influence that Queen has become is great by me, and I'm very proud to have been associated with them since 1984.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about Queen later, but what I want to focus on first is the fact that you were born in Portsmouth, which so this is like a homecoming show.
Yeah, and it's going to be a slightly different show because I think practically all of my family will be in the audience, and so it'll be like an Edney get together. Yeah, I mean, I was born in Portsmouth and grew up in various locations around Portsmouth. Early formative years in Paulsgrove, and then went to school at Northern Grammar School first, and then moved. My parents moved into Porchester, just across the border, and I changed and went to school in Prices at Fareham, which no longer exists, sadly. Got bulldozed a few years back. And then, as a young man, when my music career started, I was based in Gosport, so I've sort of had several locations in the area.
Well, it makes me also very happy, but also very sad. So that's very identical to me. I spent all of my young years in Paulsgrove, and I now live in Porchester. However, you've gone on to do greater things than me. So that does indeed make me very sad.
That's all a question of perception, isn't it, really?
So following on from that, and then more recently, you were also made a member of the Portsmouth Guildhall Wall of Fame. That must have been really nice as well.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I was very pleased about that. I was very touched to be asked. The Guildhall has played an important part in my life. I was first aware of it when I was 12 years old. My mum, for my 12th birthday in 1963, my mum took me to see the Beatles, and that was my birthday present.
At the
Um,
Portsmouth Guildhall.
at Portsmouth Guildhall, yeah.
Wow.
And the whole of the 60s is dotted with seeing iconic artists play there. I mean, in 66, I would have seen Jimi Hendrix, and in 67, I saw the Mothers of Invention and all kinds of great people. And we're very lucky to have the Guildhall because um, it's got great acoustics.
Yeah.
It's one of the few venues that really does. As a performer or a musician, there are certain venues that you look forward to going to. When the date sheet comes through, you say, "Oh, good, we're playing Portsmouth Guildhall instead of saying, oh crap, we're playing Leicester de Montfort Hall, which is without doubt one of the most horrible acoustics. Sorry, Leicester. I'm sure if anybody's from Leicester, maybe they've done something about it, but back in the day, it was appalling. And so the Guildhall has always been a great venue to see artists, but also a really great venue for artists to perform in.
And the thing that I love the most about the Guildhall is, like you say, from back in the day, my dad told me about people that he'd seen, like Tina Turner and Diana Ross and people like that, people that I never would have dreamed would come through and have come through and played. But then nowadays, you're still getting absolutely huge bands come through, which is brilliant to see.
Yeah, I know. It really is a cultural jewel in the crown because there are plenty of cities around. I mean, I hate to say it, but the rival venue back in the day was Southampton Civic Hall. Awful acoustics.
Yes.
I went to see the Rolling Stones there in the 60s, and they were supported by the Yardbirds with Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck in the same band, and the opening act was Ike and Tina Turner.
Oh my
And
word.
what a great night. But no, it was a horrible night because the sound was god awful. So
Yeah.
we have to count our blessings. If you live in the area, you should cherish Portsmouth Guildhall.
I saw Lenny Kravitz at Southampton Guildhall and I had the exact same experience.
Yeah, yeah. So we are blessed.
So we're going to talk about your show, What's It Like to Be Spike? I dare say that I may ask you a few questions that you've been asked a million times before, and I may ask you questions that are going to be in your show. So feel free to say next at any point. I am
Yeah.
going to start with a very, very obvious question. Obviously, the moment when you arrived with Queen, what was it like and how nervous were you?
I was very, very nervous. I had I was going off to do an audition, and at that point in the early 80s, I'd done quite a few auditions, and so I was kind of mentally prepared for what to expect. However, Queen's audition for me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I assume you'll tell the rest of that story later.
Yes, you're right.
You played all over the world. You played on some of the biggest stages on the planet. When you look back, and especially with all of the documentary footage that's out there and now film footage that's out there, how do you view it? Do you view it from your own memories, or can you still look at it like you're almost floating above yourself and look down and just think, wow?
Both, actually. Very interesting question because sometimes I get sent footage or film video of occasions, and I get to see the scope of how big it was. I mean, when you're on the stage, you can only see really a certain amount, and so you might see 20, 30,000 people and get a feel for the actual size of that. But beyond that, it's just a blur. You know, you're aware that people there, and in fact, I was that was brought home to me when we did a show in Kiev, Ukraine. Sadly, Kiev is a beautiful city, and we did a show there in happier times. Um, and apparently, there were 1.5 million people
Oh my
out
word.
there watching us, and it wasn't just the fact that the big square that we were in could hold 1.5 million people. It couldn't. It could only hold 700,000. The rest of the people were down streets that had no visual of the stage with screens, so that they were down, but we could hear them. You know, the noise was absolutely unbelievable. So that's kind of surreal and I've seen pictures of that, and then I've been on stages, where the crowd, Rock in Rio for one, where you're in a field and it's just people as far as the eye can possibly see, and so that can be daunting, but it's no more terrifying than playing a club with 50 people up close watching you. I mean,
I always hate that. I would far rather. I have never hosted to tens and twenties of thousands of people. But I would far rather host to a large crowd than 50 people or something like that. I'd hate that.
Yeah. Well, the heckling's much closer when there's only 50 people.
Every single bum note you hit, they hear it with
Well,
perfection.
not only that, but they try to engage you in conversation, and that could be a bit off-putting as well.
Now, obviously, you worked with all of the members of Queen individually and collectively. Now, somebody like myself, I'm 44 years old. I've only ever seen, like I say, the documentary footage, the film footage, all of the other bits and pieces. It comes across to me like they were very much four individuals who worked brilliantly together, but you can also understand why there were the clashes of personality. What was it like being inside of that? And did you know sometimes whether you needed to get involved in a discussion or whether to step back?
Well, the rule for somebody who's a hired gun or brought into is to keep your mouth shut, listen, and only speak when spoken to. So if you're right, four very strong characters and four very creative musicians and composers. They all wrote hits, right? In fact, John Deacon, the one who is called the quiet one, and he is the quiet one compared to the others, but he's a forceful character, and he wrote Another One Bites the Dust, which I think to this day is the biggest selling Queen record in America, even more than
Wow.
Bohemian Rhapsody. So he wrote Dust, You're My Best Friend, and what's the other one? I've just lost. Break Free. I Want to Break Free. So, and that's the quiet member. You know, he has
Yeah.
come out with these big hits. Yes, their artistic rows, I have to say,
Yeah.
were legendary because everybody has an idea. And I believe they solved that by saying whoever writes the song gets the last say.
Ah,
So that way they kept their sort of democracy going. You write the song, you call the shots.
I
So
like that.
yeah, it was very wise, a wise decision.
You had plenty of your own projects and bands outside of Queen. How important was it for you to have that creative space outside with SAS and various other bits and pieces?
Um, yeah, I mean, the thing is, you say 40 years with Queen, but that's not 40 years continually. I
No.
mean, the first couple of years were quite busy because I joined on the Works tour in '84, and then we did a Live Aid in the summer of '85, which kicked off a whole new period of excitement. Um, they followed Live Aid with the movie Highlander, and the soundtrack to Highlander was the Magic album, A Kind of Magic. So there was a 84 to 86, and in fact, I'm going to say this now. August this year is the 40th anniversary of Queen performing at Nebworth, which was Freddie Mercury's last ever Queen concert,
Wow. Wow.
which is a sobering thought. And hopefully, there's going to be something happening to celebrate that. I can't say what it is because I don't know. But round about August time, there should be an event of some kind that touches on that 40th anniversary. And then sadly, we lost Fred 91, which you would have thought was the end of everything, but it wasn't, because both Brian and Roger started out on solo careers, and I was involved in bits of both of them. And the next thing you know, off the back of Brian's uh, first tour with his, what was it, Back to the Light? That was it, Back to the Light World Tour. I got the call from Peter Chegwin in Gospel to come and do something at the Gospel Festival. And that was really the birthplace of the SAS band. So Gospel spawned the SAS band, and that took up a lot of my time. And we celebrated our 30th year anniversary last year. So yeah, there has been quite a few other things. And then, of course, come 2004, the collaboration between Queen and Paul Rodgers, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, huge fan of Paul Rodgers. They are too. Loved that. And that finished in 2008. We thought it was all over. 2011, we meet Anna Blambert, and which brings us kind of up to the present day. So there's periods when it's all full on, and there's periods when nothing happens, and you think it's over, and then all of a sudden you turn a corner and something else happens. And that's what the whole story about What's It Like to Be Spike covers. You never know what's going to happen because one day you're doing something and you're riding high, and the next minute it's all stopped, and you think, "Oh my God, I better get my paintbrush out and get a decorator's van and find something else to do." And then the phone rings, and all of a sudden you're off again. So it's not a level plateau. It's troughs and crests and high points and moments of great deep depression as well. But here we are.
I don't know how much you keep abreast of like newer music and what have you. You've mentioned some names already, like the Beatles and the Stones, obviously Queen, and then more recently Oasis. There are certain bands that their legacy just seems to live on and on and on and on. I don't know too many bands, probably since Oasis, since the 90s and the early 2000s, that I can think are still going to have that same impact.
A discussion I have often with friends, but the culture is different now. When we grew up, buying a record was like the greatest
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
It was a big part of your life. You say you got birthday money and you got Christmas money or a record token, and you would choose what record you bought really carefully. And if it was a vinyl album, you would scour the liner notes for the lyrics and who played on it and where it was recorded, and it was all consuming. Now you download any old title you think of when you think of it, the connection's not there. I mean, and each generation reacts differently. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of teenagers now saying, "No, no, our music is the best, and we make playlists and we have parties." I'm sure you do, but I don't think they have this. It's an all-consuming passion like it was for the generations before. By even when it turned to CDs, everybody said, "Oh, it's not the same." But you would still buy a CD and read the liner
Yep,
notes,
I
and
did. Yep.
yeah, so we've lost that. So maybe our connection to music has also, moved, but we still have amazing artists. People come through. I mean, look at Beyonce, look at Taylor Swift, whose music I hardly know, but she is a cultural force.
Do
So
you think it's now moved to those individuals? And I agree with you, by the way, with both of those, Beyonce, and I would also even throw maybe Bruno Mars into that.
yes,
Do you think we're now down to the individuals, to the solo performers?
it's going that way because it's now the first time that there's not a band in the charts or something. It's all
Yeah.
people featuring somebody else,
Yeah.
and but I have to say you can't expect to live in the past and that everything will always be the same because art, music. Moves on. People have different ideas, different ways of presenting it. Look at painters, how they've gone through the different styles and modes over the centuries. And music itself moves on, so we can't complain too much, and we have to sort of embrace the new. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept the fact that it's going to change. But even then, every now and then, I hear something that makes me stop and go, "Oh wow, what's that?" And the last artist that did that for me was this girl Ray, who I
Yes.
wasn't very very familiar with, but she's obviously a great talent.
Phenomenal.
And I'm intrigued at her the way she puts her stuff together and the concept she's had. There's plenty of stuff that I don't care about. Well, the majority of stuff I don't care about. But I'll hear a voice or I hear a melody or I hear a hook or something, and that'll make me stop and say, "What is this? I'm interested in this." Not like it was when I
No.
was a teenager, but it never is.
Few and
Every
far between now.
yeah, every week back in when I was 15 there was another great artist with another great song, and when you think of how the '60s started with probably with Pat Boone and Doris Day and the sort of milk white bread sound that we had. By the time the Beatles came along at the end of '62, '63, to where we were in
Oh,
'69,
just
massive,
light years
massive.
away.
Yeah. And every week there would have been somebody else coming along, talented, creative, with original presentation. So it's a point I try to make the show is that if you were born in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, or possibly 80s, you had the best of it in terms of the amount of quality music that you were exposed to.
Yeah.
Not all of it. I mean, we had
No,
Trippy, Trippy, Cheap, Cheap,
yeah,
and
and I always say this, we reminisce about some phenomenal music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but there was a fair amount of tripe around as well.
oh yeah, yeah.
You choose to ignore that.
And we had the great Jonathan King to thank for most of it.
Well, look, I've taken up a lot of your time, Spike. I want to ask you two final questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If somebody came to you today and said, I want to be a touring musician at that level, what's the one thing that they're probably not prepared for?
Oh, rejection.
Yeah.
You got to be when you do what I've done things when I think that is you go in and sort of you're under fire. It's like having an O-level exam, and everything's down to one performance of maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and you've got to pour your heart and soul into it. And at the end of it, you think, well, I don't feel bad about that. That was okay. And then they turn around and say, nah, it's not right. I
Yeah.
mean, a musician isn't quite the same as being an actress or a model, but if you're a model and you go in for an audition and they say, no, you're wrong, you're just wrong for it, you look wrong. Well, that happens to musicians as well. You can look wrong, you can play wrong, and then you go home, you go to sort of like, you know, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. So you've got to, the things you need, probably in any career, but in the career that I've had, is well. So let's start with the ability to play something. Let's say you start with a bit of talent and you can play a couple of chords on a keyboard or a couple of tunes on a guitar. Then you need determination. You say that I'm going to take what talent I've got. I personally know that I will never be as great a keyboard player as Herbie Hancock or Stevie Wonder or something like that, but I have other attributes that I know are useful. And you put that together with getting over your fear of rejection, because not some people have it easy all the way through. Most people have to do it, again and again before they get it right, and they get used to being turned down. And then you better pray for some luck, because you need luck, but you can make your own luck. What you need to be is ready to take the opportunities.
Yes.
And so whenever I've found myself rejected, I'd go home and practice and thought,
Yep.
well, I'm now going to make myself even better and more ready for the next opportunity that comes along, because the phone rings and you pick it up and the answer is always yes. And then you figure out after yes how to make it, how to make it work. And some days, well, it's been very rare that I've had a clash of things, said yes to one thing and yes to another. It's turned out I've been able to fit things in and get away with most of it. But it's not all sweetness and light. There's dark days and there's days on the dole as well.
Yeah, I've always said that. Say yes to everything and figure out how to work it all out at a later date.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question. When you hear Queen on the radio or anywhere now, can you listen like a fan, or does your brain instantly go, I remember that night when X, Y, and Z?
Actually, no, not neither of them. If it's something I've heard too much of, I turn it off immediately. But sometimes, I remember I was in Marks and Spencer, I don't know, a big store, and something came on, and we were due to go and play that very song at some kind of awards ceremony, and I was listening to it coming over the speakers in the shop, and I realised there were bits in it that I hadn't noticed before, and that needed to be drafted into the version. Over the years, the studio versions get kind of adjusted on stage. You get out of, I don't know, out of boredom or out of just trying to do something new, and sometimes bits and pieces get shuffled around. And I heard, I think it was Under Pressure, and I was listening to it, and I thought, oh my God, I've assumed that this bit followed that bit, but it doesn't. It's a little bit later, and just bits like that. So it makes me, I put on my my work hat, and I study and think about things and say, oh, I need to make an adjustment. We're not doing this bit right, you know.
I love that, that even after all of these years, there's still something you go, I'm not doing that right. I need to do this. I really
Yeah.
like that. I really, really like that. Well, look, Spike, thank you so much for talking to me. I've absolutely loved talking to you.
Okay.
Spike
Thanks a lot.
Edney is going to be at the Portsmouth Guildhall on the 22nd of January with What's It Like to Be Spike. If you want to hear lots more amazing stories, grab your tickets now. Spike, thank you so much for talking to me.
Well, thank you. But just to say, if you can't get into the Guildhall, because I think we're on the verge of a sellout, the newest date is the one that's a week later on the 29th at Kew in Brentford at the Music Museum. They only put their tickets on sale last week, so there's a chance that you could get to that.
There you go.
Okay.
Second chance, go and grab them. Spike, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
It was great. Thanks a lot, Paul.